We launched the equity assessment as an agency later last year, especially after all the social and civil unrest that we saw over the last summer. And it really made us think about how we as an agency can work towards racial equity and also equity for all minorities. This is something that is long overdue, but I think that it's really important that the work starts somewhere, especially with urban planning that has historically had so many negative impacts on racial injustice. And that's something that we as an agency really want to help our community in reversing. And it's not something that we can do alone. We absolutely need your help, and we want to understand where you're coming from, because at the end of the day, you're the ones out in the community living your lives and understanding the experiences, your own experiences, your neighbors' experiences. And we really want to take a look at the human aspect behind planning and understand what you're going through. I think it's one of the most common examples of unjust planning practices that is brought up is probably redlining, essentially areas where banks did not want to provide loans to residents because these areas were deemed to be high risk. And what is racially unjust about this is that historically, the areas that were redlined were predominantly African American neighborhoods. Even though it's something that isn't allowed anymore, that's something that we can see impacted in our cities today, where certain neighborhoods still don't have equitable resources. And this can really be dated back um, to these practices of redlining. So, in considering some of the racially unjust practices that have been implemented in urban planning by planners, it's really important for us to consider how those impacts are still seen today, and more importantly, how we as planners can reduce these gaps and reduce these disparities. And the equity assessment is just our starting point in looking at the communities that have been disenfranchised in Pinellas County and looking at how we can empower the communities around us directly through our work, not just as a small section in a large document, but something that really becomes part of the culture of our organization and part of our work as a forethought and not an afterthought. So one of the things that we have established with the equity assessment is that first and foremost, it's important for us to just listen. Historically, a lot of agencies or a lot of entities can decide for communities what might be best for them. And that's not something that we want to do. We want to hear directly from the communities that have been impacted by racial injustice, by social injustice, and specifically how that relates to the work that we can do as planners. And the survey is one of the ways that we are going to be listening. And we would love to listen in person, but of course, with the coronavirus pandemic, it's difficult for us to create those conditions where we can have large focus groups where we can meet with large crowds of people. And we're hoping that this survey is a way for us to get your feedback directly, to hear from the community members what is missing from your communities. What struggles do you have? Is it hard for you to get to work? Is it hard for you to get to school, to childcare? What struggles are you facing in your community as a result of the development around you, as a result of the transportation options around you? We just want to know what is happening in your community so we can understand how we can help. The results of the survey will be read by real people, such as myself, and also Angela Ryan, who is the lead on the equity assessment. She's one of the principal planners at our agency. The most important thing for us is to first look at the results with a completely open mind and see what the community is telling us. It's something that we really will take the time to look at and read and try to understand. That it will take you less than 5 minutes to complete. And those 5 minutes of your time would mean so much to us. And I understand that as a single mom, for example, with multiple kids and maybe multiple jobs and many other responsibilities, it's hard to put the time aside for this. But I would hope to express the importance of getting this information from our community members, because we want to know, is it hard for you to get to that job? Is it hard for you to get to that childcare for your children? What about the grocery store and other everyday activities that you need? Are you finding if you have to rely on public transportation that it's taking you an extremely long time to get to basic everyday activities that someone with a car can get to? in 15 minutes. Because if we know this and if we know exactly where this impact is happening, then we will know where to put the resources and we will know how to advocate for you so that you have a better way of getting to your everyday activities. And hopefully, in the end, this can improve your quality of living. It seems crazy to think that one survey can do that. And I'm not saying that this one survey will solve all the problems and give us all the answers, but it will give us some insight into what your struggles are because we really want to know. I think if someone doesn't have access to a computer in their own residence, I would definitely recommend going to your closest public library. If anybody has questions about the survey, if anybody has any concerns about your privacy with the survey, that's something that we can definitely provide assurance with because this is something that we are providing anonymity with. We want you to feel comfortable in giving us your thoughts. Any questions about the survey, you can reach out to us and we are more than happy to help. And we want to make sure you can provide us your honest experience because at the end of the day, this is your life and the community that you live in. No, this survey is just one of the tools that we'll be using to listen to the public. We do hope to transition into small focus groups to meet with people in person, to put names to faces, and to understand where people are coming from, what part of the county they live in. We're also contacting are already in contact with various leaders around the community who have already been doing work in equity and trying to understand what work they're doing, what community members they have contact with, and how we can work with them to build trust within the communities that we want to help, and also to eventually help these communities and to have a direct impact with the way that we practice planning in a way that is equitable and empowers everyone in Pinellas County. Our first and foremost concern right now is getting the survey out and wide across Pinellas County to get as many residents as we can to answer the questions that we put in front of them. And we really want to understand where those issues are first. And then from there, doing more outreach with our community members and community leaders to understand how we can build better relationships with these communities and then how we can get this work started.